Hello, this is Pastor Bob at marriagehelp.com. This is an introduction to the lesson we have on how to live above your fears. Freedom from the basic, deepest, most ingrained fears within us. The Bible tells us that we have been given by our Creator, by the Lord, when He created us, needs. We'll call them, if they're unfulfilled, fears that lead us to the individuals who will take care of those needs and satisfy those needs and settle those fears and drive those dark shadows out of our lives if we are faithful in doing for each other what God's Word says we're supposed to be doing. Now, this is one of the most interesting classes, one of the most interesting sessions in the classes, because I have to talk to both the women and the men, the brides and the grooms, or the husbands or the wives, for the benefit of both and each individually. But it's very difficult because in all the years of doing this, I've come up with one lingering problem. While the wives grew up with the fears that come with their gender, and the men have grown up with the fears that are unique to their gender, they have not spent even one moment of time really living in the bodies or the minds or the identity of the other through all those years. And so as we start to talk about this, we usually have to rehearse over and over and over again the individual fears of the other. The ladies always remember theirs. They understand that. The men usually understand theirs. They get that. But we have to rehearse the fear of the other and remind ourselves of what we're dealing with. If I had a suggestion, since we're not going to sit down together like we do in a premarital class or in a marriage counseling class, I'd just like for you to just write down on a piece of paper, one piece of paper with the fear of the ladies, one piece of paper with the fear of the men, and scotch tape those up someplace like on one side of the television screen and the other. That way, as you watch your normal programming, you go through your normal processes, you read the newspaper, however you're working on your normal daily routine, you can identify individuals either from the sitcoms or the jokes on The Tonight Show or whatever your particular pattern is. If you have these fears posted so that you can say, there's a guy that's living with that particular fear. There's another woman that is dealing with that one. You will find that you can not only confirm the reality of what God's Word says those fears are, but you can start to remind yourself of the fear that your spouse or your partner is living with every single day. This is an introduction. I'm not going to tell you what the fears are until we get to the individual response. One thing I have to say in announcing this up at the beginning. It is a temptation within us as individuals to look at the fear of the other person and trivialize that and lessen the importance of that fear. If that fear was not a foundational fear, the thinking, the way of responding that is the foundation stone upon which everyone's behavior is resting, you could trivialize it and say, well, that's just being silly. Why would you be worried about that? And you could just write it off as some sort of a quirk or an unnecessary affectation of your husband or your wife, and you could just dismiss it as not being important. The problem is we come together as husbands, wives, marriage partners, because we have an inward sense that there's something that we are providing to that individual that is of utmost importance. Now, we may not be able to verbalize it to the point where we say, yes, here it is. But it is so important that it is one of the foundation stones, the core values of marriage. I'm going to say right now, please connect to the next two lessons, the greatest fear of women and the greatest fear of men, and then to the final lesson that talks about how do we respond to that and how do we put these new lessons, these new insights into practice. Thank you for listening. Please follow more of the links on marriagehelp.com, and I believe you're going to find them some of the most interesting things you've ever learned about yourself, about your spouse, and about your marriage. And you'll have some good tools to use to build a stronger relationship. Thank you.